A major headache with CSS has been inconsistent implementation, leading to the need for hacks to serve different rules to certain browsers. The approach to CSS3 is completely different, as you'll see if you switch to the category view in the Properties pane of the CSS Styles panel. You access the Categories view by clicking the icon on the far left at the bottom of the Properties pane in the CSS Styles panel. At the bottom here you can see that there are 4 categories for Mozilla, Microsoft, Opera and WebKit. Just open one of those. And the idea is that each browser uses its own prefix on new properties until the CSS3 specification has stabilized. So if you use a property that begins with -moz, it will work only in Firefox and it won't affect any of the other browsers. So if Firefox implements the property incorrectly or differently from another browser, it won't impact on the way in which that property is seen in the other browser. Let's go a bit further down and open the Microsoft one. You can see that the number of vendor-specific properties for Microsoft is considerably smaller than for Mozilla, which is Firefox. So each browser is introducing its own properties at its own pace. If we go down and look at Opera, you'll see that Opera has actually very few. Now this isn't because Opera is being lazy or slow. In fact, Opera has been very quick to adopt CSS3, and it doesn't need many vendor-specific properties. To show you an example of vendor-specific properties in action, let's take a look at this page. I'll just turn on Live View, and the corners on this div have been changed so greatly that it's now become a circle. This has been done using the border radius property, which is new to CSS3. But when border radius was introduced by Firefox and by WebKit browsers, such as Safari and Chrome, there were doubts about exactly how the specification would be implemented. So Firefox introduced moz border radius, and WebKit browsers, Safari and Chrome, used WebKit border radius. When you're using a CSS3 property that has got vendor-specific prefixes, you need to put the vendor-specific prefix versions first, followed by the official one. And by placing the official property last, the CSS cascade ensures that it overrides the vendor-specific versions as soon as the specification stabilizes and the browser supports it. In some ways, this is a double-edged sword. It means you can implement new properties without waiting for all browsers to catch up, but it does make your style definitions more verbose. Instead of 1 line here, we've got 3. Also, you need to leave the vendor-specific versions in your style sheets for some time, even after a browser starts supporting the stabilized official property. You must remember, not everyone updates their browser as quickly as a web developer is likely to do. Another problem is knowing which properties require vendor-specific prefixes. Well, the CSS Styles panel helps you here in Category View by showing you the prefixes for the different browsers. Another way to find out is in Code View in your style sheet. If you type a hyphen, Dreamweaver code hints automatically bring up the vendor-specific prefixes. And if you select moz, it then brings up those properties that are associated with the moz vendor-specific prefix. If I type -ms, then I see the different set of properties which apply to Internet Explorer. Of course, these apply only to Internet Explorer 9 and beyond. Internet Explorer 8 does not support CSS3. In addition to Dreamweaver's code hints and the CSS Styles panel, a very useful resource is the caniuse.com website. If you go there and deselect all and then select CSS, it shows you which properties are supported by which versions of browsers. And there's a color code at the top here. Light green is supported, pink means that it's not supported, and sort of mid-green is partially supported. As you scroll down, you'll see that some properties have got these little yellow icons. And if it has a yellow icon, as the tooltip shows you, it requires this prefix to work. So for CSS3 box sizing, you need to use the moz vendor-specific prefix in Firefox in every current version, whereas in Internet Explorer, it's fully supported without a vendor-specific prefix. The border radius, which I demonstrated before, is supported by new versions of Firefox and Safari and Chrome, but the older versions still need the vendor-specific prefix. Using vendor-specific prefixes results in more work. Your style sheets are longer, and you need to check browser compatibility. But I think it's certainly a price worth paying because it means an end to having to resort to hacks to deal with differences between browsers.